thank you very much for taking an interest in my history with a little bit of Larry. You can see Larry's from Ellensburg and I'm from Hollywood. And who would expect that we would meet and marry? And in both cases, our fathers, our families were descendants of pioneers of the American West, inventors, entrepreneurs, doctors, sheep, cattle, farmers, glaziers. And in some of my earliest ancestors, there were my father's mother's line were Huguenots, and he was a master in silver art. So that chalice is from him. And Larry's family were farmers, and his father's line were woodsmen. And so we fortunately inherited some of that woods down near the Oregon, Oregon. Yeah, Washington. Yeah, it's practically on the line to Oregon. And so we are benefiting from some of that. And where my, unfortunately, the ties with the Spencers with sheep are not to be seen, not found over many generations. Okay, there's Larry's father in the top left, Pacific Front Occupation Force, and my father in the bottom right, and he was Naval Air and was so lucky he got to go to 2 wars, unfortunately. But everything's fine. He loved flying, and you'll see a little bit of later in life when he's no longer in the military and no longer battling in a war. And oh, Larry got snagged there, the Vietnam War, and there we are, the Naval Sandpoint Naval Air Station. Luckily, he didn't get off to war. My father was very good with technology, and very unhappy with his alcoholic boss in Los Angeles. And so he grabbed at an opportunity to go up to Vancouver, BC, and show his welding. Hard facing was the specialty, and that goes on tractor blades and railroad tracks and all sorts of very essential equipment. And it was a big adjustment for all of us, the three kids in the family, and all that rain. We were kind of used to California, but we did adapt, and I still love Vancouver. Next. So here's out of a 4-passenger Cessna window of my father piloting, getting to see Mount Rushmore, and we flew to the East Coast, went to the World's Fair. That's what the globe in the center there. I took lessons for a while, but I just didn't feel like I had the confidence that will ever have the confidence that my father had with flying planes. Next. So from a very early age, I was drawing and painting and making things out of whatever I could. And I ended up taking that into university studies and found ceramics to be wonderful. I love painting, I love sculpture, but the ceramics department was just a playground and a challenging space to work with people and the materials. And so we have all of my professors there. And I also really love studying the Native Coast Indian art with Bill Holm. Next. So there I am doing my version of Mount Rushmore in the upper left. And I'm not sure where these things come from. In the cupboard, there, I imagine the figures representing our different products, food products, etc., that were being released into out of their boxes. And Larry and I, and then Larry just sat down to throw a couple times, and he just was really good at it. So that's what he still does. Next. After a little bit of time, and I can't remember what that transition was, but we decided that it would be enriching to visit another country. And this is a beautiful volcano, Chinchutepec, which basically is reference to two breasts volcanoes. And we learned a lot from our experience there, our Peace Corps experience. Yeah, I didn't write that in there. But yeah, we thought it would be good job training and that sort of thing. Next. So we took advantage of the climate. Larry was actually working with a team. Some of the Americans were from the Northwest, and I think that was the fisheries thing was something that they had in common. I learned to scuba dive, and it was fantastic experience in warm water instead of cold water. Next. So here we are in the little town of Ilo Bosco, El Salvador. It was known for its ceramics because they had natural deposits of clay, and many, many people were employed producing these miniatures. You see the man on the lower left corner, and beautiful plates, the talent, just the natural ability to manipulate images and forms. And it was quite an experience being there. Modeling clay is God's work, and that was written on you saw that quite a bit, and different themes. Next, the famous potter Coatepeque is on the right, and you can see that it's just a kick wheel, and the clay was such that they put a band of rope at a critical part to help support the clay until it was firm enough to hold its own shape. And it was just the quality of that particular clay deposit, very natural thing. Also, we participated in learning a little bit about their test kiln. Larry's standing there by a downdraft wood-fired kiln in Nilo Bosco. And I was team teaching in the National Art School, San Salvador, El Salvador. And so, but there's an adult woman who probably comes up to my shoulder when she's standing up. But she said, "You demonstrate and I'll yell at them." So that was her sense of humor. But we had a great time. It worked out really well. Next. So we're back in the little town of Ilo Bosco, and the silver hair woman was just an endless energy of producing these incredible pots. And I do have an example of one that I thought I might show, but you can also see they're making roof tiles. They press it over a mold that he's standing at and then just run their fingers down. So when you look at the tiles, you still can see finger marks on them. And wealthy places and very humble places all had similar tiles on their roofs, and they worked very, very well. Next. So we took a trip. Tikal incredible ancient structure, castle, fortress, and you see these incredible paintings and ceramics are just everywhere. Next. Bill Baldwin was a PhD archaeologist, and we met there, and we had a chance to see this hieroglyphic staircase that he'd been studying for a long time. And also there was this, what they call on the lower left, a sacrificial stone. We decided that we would put the camera on that sacrificial stone and take portrait of the three of us together. And the truth was, looking at that stone from that position, we were all kind of giggling nervously what the history really was. And we still cherish that picture. Next. So Guadahiagua again, and you can see the incredible work. They did not use plastic, they used leaves to harden the upper half of the pot enough so they can turn them over and finish the bottom. And so you're seeing the upper two images, step one, and then the finishing, step two. Next. And this is how they were transported on fellas' backs, and women too, but not this kind of load. It's just quite incredible. They're relatively lightweight, but that's only relative. But that load that he was carrying is unfathomable to me. Next. And then we got back to Seattle, and 1976 bumper shoot. I don't know how many people in this group were there, but we had a spaceship landing site by Claire Colquitt, alien attack at Seattle Center. And I just happened to make this suit with my ceramic helmet and boots, and I consider myself an alien too. Next. Larry decided he would go ahead and employ himself at the studies that he did at UW in the National Marine Fisheries observer on a Japanese catch, the Bering Sea. And he pretty much decided that's not where he wanted to go. Ceramics was the direction he was going to go. Next. So he's kind of half and half, doing some ceramics on the side. But we moved up to Humphrey Head, well, Lopez Island, and you were doing work for fisheries there. And it inspired a number of my works along the way. Our waterfront, we had a waterfront, and it's just really hard to see, but there was a dugout canoe that was just lying there that we never touched or damaged. It was so fragile, but beautiful. Next. So I ended up getting commissions to make tiles for various situations, like the swimming pool on Capitol Hill, and showing at Foster White with a bench and table and Larry's dinnerware on the table. And commission for South Seattle Police Precinct, doing architectural tiles. But we were inspired by our trip in Barcelona, Spain, and that's kind of what made me think that ceramics on exterior is an interesting way to go. You'd have to have high temperature in order to survive outside. But it all worked out pretty well. Next. So this is me working at an Sunrise Elementary School in Redmond, installing. I've got a map of the United States, and so I've had little tiles for each state, thinking of being educational. Washington State, who can find Arizona? Anyway, it seemed to work out pretty well. The kids liked it too. Next. Columbia Tower Restaurant Bar. I had completely forgotten about this, and it came up in the slides. And let's see, there was a symposium of art architecture in Spokane, and I participated in a show there. Also, we were working at the Salty Dog Studio in Ballard, and I was commissioned to do some freestanding columns, as you can see in the lower right-hand image. And Chuck Greening was there at the time, and he assisted me. He was intrigued by using other materials. Next. Women in Space in New York City. And I've got the sewer pipes that I bought, so I didn't have to produce the form, but I would cut them up and carved them and glazed them. And it was, just, I liked working on the larger scale. I also have a paper piece to the right and some drawings, the lower right. Next. And then after a period of time, I decided I wanted to go to graduate school. And I was very intrigued with Ron Nagel, who's still producing kind of remarkable works, but mostly he's doing these small cups that sell for, very high prices. And he asked me to help him with his idea of building a large, it's like his cup blown up many times over. So I gave him a hand, and that's at Mills College when I was working on my graduate degree. Next. And there's my MFA thesis, and nothing is ceramic in there. It's wood and fiberglass and other material, graphite, board, and some of it's in the Microsoft collection. Next. And there we are. That's Ron Nagel standing next to me. And there's Tim Mossman, also graduating that year. We had a great time together. Next. And our daughter was born in California. So I stayed there for a while because I kept getting teaching, but it wasn't quite enough to kind of really settle, and our parents were getting older. So we decided to move back up to the Northwest. And those are a number of wall pieces that I produced. Well, there's a couple shots. There's a shot of Larry in the studio with our son, who's in elementary school at that time. And we put together some clay camps to keep him busy with his friends and allow others to join in. And this pile of little faces on the left are his. He's just nonstop. I got a commission to make tiles, some of the tiles for the Ballard locks. That's Liam standing there. Just some flyers from various shows, etc. Next. Another school commission. The camaraderie is quite wonderful. The teachers seemed to be really happy. The kids were engaged. they had identity with their school and learning something that wasn't just doing math or writing on paper. It's to have the three-dimensional, the carvable, the paintable, and then seeing it installed was kind of wonderful for them. Next, Gallery 6311, which is no longer with us, right? Yeah, it was a Ballard gallery. Larry and I had a show there. I'm not sure if there were others in that show or not. Too bad that one didn't last, but we could had some good shows. Next, more of my work, often looking at that organic material. Next, Seattle Pacific. So we met Larry Metcalf, and he invited us both to teach at Seattle Pacific. And so that was a show that we were in there. It was nice to have a number of schools in the area that I commuted to. Next, all goes back to those early vessels, those paddle boats. Next, Edmonds Community College. I had the opportunity because I was teaching there to invite a number of people to participate in a show there, and you can see a variety of people's work. Continued making large scale tiles and some modest, and experimenting with plates, and there's China paint on the upper left, and the others are underglaze with just a coating to protect the glaze, the color, excuse me. Next, North Seattle was the last college that I taught at. Had great experiences there, and ceramic classes were popular and enriching, I think, for all. Next. So these are brand new, first time ever working with clay at making a functional piece. Next. It just happened. I didn't shop for people, but they kind of drifted in, and Jack Lawson was one of those people. He just had a touch. He had a completely different life outside of pottery. But he loved it. He loved being with the students. The students were very fond of him, and some wonderful things were made. Next. We had very international students and teachers. There's Michael Carrizosa, work study architecture, and that his work was inspiring to others. It was a good experience for me too. Next. So we had seniors and internationals and very young people, but you get some really beautiful pieces. Next. More work. Next. Now throwing. That was something that was not one of my fortes. I've got good enough to teach it and produce some, but I like hand building better. Next. So I keep forgetting to ask Larry. We didn't go to Barcelona to see this installation. No. Okay. But it's stunning. It's very, very nice. Next. More wall installations, more colorful tiles. Next. So you can see me at work and how it's produced and colored, and don't remember where some of these installations are, but you've got some of Larry's and some of mine on display. Next. I think I mentioned before that Larry inherited some woods that was his father grew up in South Bend, Washington, and was family property. And it's his father, his grandfather learned about a sale, and so they invested in it, and we still have that, and it is producing some income for us, and it's beautiful and unique. Our son's wife is from New York City, and we took her there to see some harvesting of the forest there, and she was just absolutely blown away and couldn't even imagine how different that world was. They just looked totally delighted to experience that. So it continues to inspire me. Maybe that's part of my dreamy, mythical kind of ideas. Next. Oh, there's our son Liam and our daughter Lauren. And we celebrated their graduation by taking them to London, Paris, Barcelona, and it was an incredible treat for all of us. Our daughter is now married and living in New Jersey with 2 kids. I hope that she continues with her strongest arts, and that singing. I hope that comes back someday. And Liam is he's very good with woodworking. That's part of how he's supporting himself and his wife, who's in graduate school there. He also is making art, and I hope he'll continue to make art. He's very talented. Next. More of my heads, my totems, and there's some familiar faces at the top. Next. I had completely forgotten that I sent this long line of what I call wall vessels that went to a Japanese hospital, Yamanishi Prefecture. And I'm glad I had that slide because I'd completely forgotten. Next. That was our daughter's. She was #1 singer at Ballard High School, also taught yoga and did art on the side. Next. And there's our son's work. And I'm not sure about that bell on his head, but the paintings are all his, and the cups as well. Next. And this is Father-Daughter Bellevue Fair 2016. And Lauren, she was just really good. She liked doing it, like doing the sales. I'm not crazy about it. And Larry kept it up until this year. Anyway, he's still producing, selling, showing. Next. And we have a great little restaurant near us, Broomer and Hilltap in Ballard. Excellent food, nice atmosphere. And Larry set them up with some of his ware in their tiny but very pleasant garden. Next. I believe this is on the East Coast. It might be New York with a couple of different images. Next. And my vessels. Not sure exactly where it came from, but I always loved swimming and being near water. Next. Soup's on. That was my soup tureen with crab. More vessels. Next. Lauren Lucan's gallery. We participated there, and he's now in California. For those who remember Lauren Lucan's. Next is an indigenous boat that was hung from a ceiling in New York. An inspiration to me. It was kind of overwhelming, the scale of it compared to what I work with. And that's it. Bon voyage.